what's going on right now with manipulation in the silver market and the gold market. We're going to dig into that. We hopefully will have a special guest who will be joining us in about 10 minutes, a guy who is making quite a splash in the silver and gold market, and he'll shed some light into what's going on right now in those markets. We're also going to talk about the prospect, which could be huge for the gold price and the silver price, of a gold-backed trade settlement currency between the BRICS nations. This BRICS situation, guys, they're not telling us about it in the Western mainstream media, but it's a huge deal. We're going to dig into that as well. Thank you, Don, for that super chat. Let's put Don up on the screen. Hey, I appreciate you being here with me today. This is not possible without your support. In you being here, you giving your time is a big deal, right? We appreciate that you come here. Please give this video a thumbs up, and you can like, share, subscribe, all that great stuff as well. But let's take a look at what's going on in the silver market. Silver, $22. I think that's what the thumbnail for this video said. Are we going to hit $22 silver? We were there not too long ago, right? Just back in February and March of this year, we had the silver price hovering around $22 per ounce. Is that where we're heading? Let's take a look at the charts and see what it's telling us, because I think we might feel a little better after we take a look at this, guys. Okay, this is a 2-year chart of the silver price. We've had some breakdown, right? You see that red line that starts back in that February, March timeframe that we talked about earlier. We had a steady climb from $22 all the way up to $32 per ounce. And that climb, right, every time that the silver price would come back a little bit, come back a little bit, come back a little bit, we had a good steady, what do they call that? Uptrend, I guess. I don't know what these technical people call it, but basically it was a solid line that was support for the silver price as we were marching higher. Look, what happened yesterday, what's happening today right now is a breakdown in that. Now, it depends on how much credence you put onto the technical analysis. This is not necessarily a good thing, but certainly not the end of the road for the silver rally, in my opinion. We've talked about this, that throughout this summer, what's critical, in my opinion, is that we hold this $28, $27 range, even if we get down to 26. Think about this, guys. We were down at $22 per ounce. Even if we get back into the 26 range, 25, we're still okay. We could still, I've got a super interesting. We got a lot to talk about in this live stream. The manipulation data that you're going to see is mind-numbing alone. But I got a chart that I'm going to share with you that was sent over to me from Bald Guy Money that also explains to us what is going on, what we can expect for the next 5 to 8 weeks. A big part of the reason why gold and silver are getting killed today is right here, the DXY index, right? The toilet bowl contest that goes on between the different major fiat currencies. Currently, the DXY is at 106. Look, up significantly today. I didn't have time to look at the big breaking news this morning, but I'm sure it has either it's some good economic news that came out or supposed good economic news. Remember, guys, this is all short-term noise. Let's take a look at the long-term view of the U.S. dollar. We are in nosebleed territory. When we look back over the last 40 years on this chart, we've barely been this high, maybe at most 4, 5 out of those last 40 years. The path of least resistance for the dollar index, even though it's a bunch of BS, we know that, is to the downside. All right, let's come back. I want to say hi to you guys. Like I said, we've got tons of interesting data regarding the silver price. And wrong screen. Hold on. There we go. We have tons of interesting data regarding the manipulation that's going on right now. It's mind-numbing when you look at this stuff in regards to what's happening in the silver market and the gold market. Okay, now let's go out to let's get it out of the way. This is not going to be fun. I'm going to warn you. Take your blood pressure medicine, basement dwellers. But what is fun is that you're here. And again, I appreciate you joining me this morning. Let's do an update. We're out here at Pimbex on the gold and silver price. That is not the up to the minute price. I need to refresh the screen. Hey, gold came back a little bit. Come on, gold. Well, it really would be nice if gold closes today above $2,300. I'll be honest with you. I think that's about a 40 to 38% chance that will happen. If we could get silver above $29 at the close today, that would also be very good. But let's say thank you to our channel sponsor and a company that I go to when I buy my silver. Look, I'm not a gold stacker, but if I were, I'd be going to Pimbex as well. Pimbex is an online bullion dealer. Yes, you can buy silver, gold, platinum group metals there, but what you get at Pimbex and why I'm so sold on them and have been even before, before they sponsored the channel, is that you always have a great selection to choose from. and I'm reacquiring my voice. A great selection to choose from. You also always get great customer service. And what's really important to me is, look, when I'm converting fiat unicorn fart dust into real metal, I want to get the most metal for my money. And I've always found that at Pimbex, I absolutely get the most metal for my money. Their prices are hard to beat, but you need to figure that out for yourself. Do yourself a favor. Go out there and check out Pimbex. We're waiting for our special guest to join us this morning. He's going to shed some light on what is some very interesting, crazy. I mean, it's just mind-numbing when you look at the data coming out of the big electronic exchanges. If he's on here right now and watching with us right now, don't forget to hit the enter studio button, Mr. J. I'm keeping you a big secret until you come on, okay? Hey, let's go take a look as we're dealing with some difficult. Are you dealing with some difficulties right now, right? I got news for you. Life is difficult. Life is wonderful, beautiful. It's also challenging and difficult. If you're an investor in the silver and gold sector, it feels like we've been beaten around, even though the price is right. I know the price is right. The price is right. You know, here, I'm your local Bob Barker. Okay. The price is right for silver and gold, right? Gold fighting for 2,300. Silver fighting for $29, but it feels like we've been beat up. And I got new bad news. Don't throw eggs at me through my webcam here, guys. But look, the summertime could be a challenge for the silver and gold price. I hope I'm wrong. We've talked about this. We're going to be okay no matter what. All this stuff, quote unquote, going on right now really is short-term noise. No doubt about it, right? But the summer is traditionally a challenging time for the precious metals prices. Let's take a look at this chart that had been sent over to me from Bald Guy Money, good friend of Ron's Basement. And I think this explains it all in terms of what we're going through right now. He says for precious metals, June is the second weakest month historically. There's a trend that sees the gold price, and I would say silver price as well, pick up at the end of the summer, heading into its strongest month, which is historically September. And if we look down here on the bottom, we can see where we are in June, right? The June is not a good month for the gold price. But then as we go into July, August, September, this is from 1975 all the way through 2020. On average, those are good months, right? So really, hey, let's be optimistic. If we can make it through June, July could prove to be very, very fruitful. It's also interesting to see like the opposite reaction in the S&P 500. Typically, its best months are in the kind of that June, but really July timeframe. And then we see it dropping down. And on average, over that time period, the S&P 500 is down when the price of gold on average is up. So let's hang in there as we get through the summer and see what's going on. What about this manipulation that we have going on in the silver and gold markets? I want to bring you out. One of our favorite things to look at here in the basement is this. Let's lay the groundwork by taking a look at this, guys, the U.S. debt clock. And when we look at the paper to silver ratio, it is just astounding. Now, up today, 400.7 paper ounces of silver traded for each 1 ounce. Look, you can go up here and get the actual definition, right? The paper to silver ratio, the number of paper silver ounces traded on the major world silver exchanges divided by the actual world production of silver. That means that for each 1 ounce of silver that's produced, each 1 little ounce, go ahead and grab one of your little babies and hold it in your hand. For each one of those, right, that 1 ounce that you have in your hand, there are 400 paper ounces being traded. Okay. When we just look right up here, since we're here, let's take a look. Okay. We got to check in on our old friend, the dollar to silver ratio, which measures the year over year increase in the US M2 money supply, which is down there on the lower left side of your corner, right? That's all the money that's out there in the economy being created by the Fed and the banks and everybody else, right? All the bank accounts and everything. That's the increase in that money supply divided by the yearly world production. And that stands at 170 ounces. It's really, really astounding when you look at this data. But then when we look at days like yesterday, when the silver price got absolutely clobbered, and we look at data from places like the COMEX, and I'm sure the same, I hear even more egregious, offensive, whatever word you want to use when you look at the LBMA. But when we look at the COMEX, it's just absolutely nuts. I think our guest might be having some technical difficulties. Oh, wait, he's here. Oh my gosh. He's arrived. All right, guys. Just when I thought I'd have to do this by myself, help is on the way, and not just any help. This guy, who I'm going to introduce you to next, right? He's making a big, big splash in the precious metals world, right? I'm hearing people like Andy Schechtman talk about him now several times. Other big top analysts are mentioning this next guest as somebody who's digging in, right? He's not afraid, right, to take on the tough subjects in the silver and gold market. And without further ado, I want to bring on our friend, Mr. John Little. John, welcome to Ron's Basement. Hopefully you can hear me.
Perfectly clear, sir. And thanks for that wonderful introduction. But we all work together. I don't think there's a hierarchy. We're just basement dwellers stacking real money, right, Ron? So let's all be underdogs here, because the underdog always prevails. What's going on?
Hey, that's interesting you say that, John, because I was talking to the basement dweller community yesterday about it. This is a real simple statistic, and one that maybe you could even extrapolate upon in a future Substack article. By the way, guys, John writes what is probably some of the best literature about silver and gold for that matter, but it's the Silver Academy Substack. Is that correct, John?
Yeah, you'll put the link in there. At first we were calling it the Silver Industry, but then we rebranded it. So the URL is sort of conflicts with the name of the publication, but I can always change the name of the newsletter. I could change it every day, but a branding expert would say you're not supposed to do that. So as long as the name of the newsletter is the Silver Academy, but you'll drop the link in the, okay.
The link actually is in the description of every video that I put out. So at any time, people can check, and I refer to you often. I use your material on a regular basis. And just so people know, this is just like something you subscribe to. There is a free option, and you get like 1 or 2 emails a day. And it's something that always piques my interest and has to do with the silver and gold market. But I want to get back, John, because I want to get and then we're going to get into this manipulation potentially going on in the silver markets. But one of my viewers pointed out when you were talking about the basement dwellers and the community, the people on Reddit, Wall Street Silver, the Silver Degen Club, I'm sorry. One of my viewers pointed out this crazy statistic. It takes just 5 ounces, John. Okay, think about this. If you take the total number of people in the United States who have a job that are working, it's like 160 million people. If on a real simple basis, if each of those people were to just buy 5 ounces of silver, that would be 800 million ounces of silver. Doesn't that wipe out like the entire world's production of silver for the year? I mean, to me, that shows just how small and sensitive and delicate that the silver market is.
Yeah, and it's I think that was the philosophy. I remember when GameStop and AMC were sort of this frenzy on the meme stocks. And then I think it was MP, and I had already held silver thinking, God, it's chopping sideways forever, like I don't know, 6 or 7 years, well below 20. And then all of a sudden we found out that there is that the GameStop Syndicate may try to short silver. So the idea was if we get, that was 200,000 people, but your guy, I think we can do it with less than that because, I mean, we're up against some huge odds because they can trade a whole year's worth of mining activity on a global level in one trading day through the futures contracts. And let's explain to everyone how the
Okay.
Tamperoo. Mr. Slammy. How does Mr. Slammy work, Ron? Let's break it down.
All right. Well, let me pull up your recent Substack here because I think this was just some outstanding. There's three things I think embedded in this that I saw, but I'll let you start. Here we go, John. How manipulation works.
Well, let's just start with what a contract is on the COMEX. It's 5,000 ounces. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So just look at the screenshot here, what happened in 15 minutes. Go below. 15 minutes, and there's that waterfall. This happens usually at 2 a.m., at least twice a week. We call this Mr. Slammy or Tampity Tamp, or the Tamperoo, or Tamp Me Harder Daddy. And then our philosophy is, okay, go ahead. If silver goes up, we're happy. If silver goes down, we buy it on sale. That's like a heads I win, tails you lose, right? That's the proper mindset of a stacker. So go ahead and continue on down, and let's talk about really the news of the day is that Julian Assange was freed. He just hit his home in Australia about a couple hours ago. Oh, we can go to this slide first.
Yeah, well, wait a minute. I want to go back because this is so fascinating to me. So you're saying almost 24 million ounces of paper silver were traded yesterday in 15 minutes. So when we look at this chart, that would be, these are probably 5-minute candlesticks.
Yeah, you can see the volume below.
Okay. So
that shows you the volume.
Wow.
Anyone can look at this. You just have to go to the silver chart, and there you see all that volume.
Wow.
Doesn't that look, it's so unnatural. That's how you know it's manipulated, is like what happens at 2 a.m. And the fact that on the COMEX, you do not have to stand for delivery. You can just put in the paper order and never, Vince Lancey, you should have him on your show because he does a great job of explaining even, it's so mind-boggling that this is allowed because on the Shanghai, it is not allowed.
So because this is paper silver, and this looks like, I can't see because I can't get my screen big enough, but that was probably in the middle of the night, and we trade 24 million. Essentially, I thought I saw somewhere that you said that really only like 3% of all the contracts on the COMEX are ever actually delivered upon.
Less than 1%.
Less than 1%. So this is just paper silver that creates this massive, and 24 million ounces of silver in 15 minutes. That's significant. I mean, that's a significant number of ounces when you compare that to the actual, as we've talked about many times, the fact that the whole mining sector produces 800 million over an entire year.
Right. And let's add that it's illegal, because whenever you're creating a solution that silver's selling off, the crime is called spoofing. Listen to the word spoofing. You're creating an illusion. This guy on Twitter is every day he's sort of like ditched the deep state, but much simpler read. He just shows the one screenshot. Oh, that's the smoking gun of where the CFTC chair, Roston. He's sort of the guy that we put in all the memes. He's the character that really, that's his quote right there.
Wow.
He used the word tamp down. He might as well have said manipulate down, right? Tamping, is like the verb. It's like to be or not to be, to tamp or not to tamp. Please, Ross. And we don't care Because now, who else likes silver and gold on sale via the West Smash is the BRICS. They figured this out, right?
Yeah. I mean, and even us, John, because and I'm going to come back to this, but I want to see.
You should plug Pimbex right now. Listen, because really, folks, people should get, as they're listening to us. I have no dog in this fight with Pimbex, but they're a wonderful dealer, and I think people should buy a tube of maybe generics.
Well, because, and I'm sorry I overspoke you, but I think this is so critical because you brought this to the forefront of my mind, that we are able in the West, in the United States, like we can benefit from this manipulation as well. Like you said, I think that's what you're saying, because the price of silver is so low, it's manipulated down. We're not paying a VAT tax here. Most of us aren't paying a sales tax. I mean, I was looking last night and like silver rounds, right? And I don't really buy silver rounds. I usually buy the most cost-effective sovereign coins. But I was like, you can buy silver rounds for like pretty darn close to spot price right now. Right. And not pay sales tax and get free delivery. I'm like, wow, this is better than almost as good as buying it on the COMEX directly.
Well, in a way, to have that boutique service, and you don't have to buy 5,000 ounces.
Yeah.
And like you say, after Friday's smash, silver's on sale because it's like that whole metaphor. You can't hold a beach ball underwater.
Yeah.
Can I give you a crude metaphor for this?
Sure. Yeah. Oh, you can be as crude as you like.
You got to make everyone laugh on social media. But let's say your wife cuts you off of sex, and it's for some petty reason, like you're not doing enough chores or something. Well, maybe your wife didn't figure out that there's Tinder out there now, and so they think they're consequencing you, or there's some. And again, I'm happily married, and this thought's never popped into my head. But I'm just saying that Roston and Christian and CPM Group, they may think they're punishing the stackers with this consequence of never discovery on the silver price. But in a way, they're not punishing you. There's always an end around, just like with sanctions. Putin may have felt like, oh my God, Biden's going to kill us with these sanctions. Then they figured out, a gram of gold for barrel of oil. And now they're buying more oil than they were before using the US dollar. Then you can't walk that punishment back. It's left the bottle as the genie's out.
Yeah.
Go down the screen though, because now we have a smoking gun.
Well, let me wait. Give me 1 second, because your next point I thought was so interesting. A very typical day on the COMEX. Paper, this is like an average-ish day, and correct me if I'm wrong, John.
Correct.
But there's almost 700 million ounces a day traded on the COMEX on an average-ish day.
And remember, annual supply or mining's 800 million, so it's basically one day.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, think about
1 day
that.
equals 1 year, which is interesting. Keep that ratio in mind. 1 day equals 1 year. That's 365. Well, what is the paper to silver ratio? It's about 400 to 1.
Yes.
So let's really quickly, a derivative is a financial instrument that derives value from an underlying asset. I know that's a lot of fancy doublespeak, but to think of that is that it derives value. So what is the underlying asset? You can hold a 1 ounce roundup right now, Ron, and then tell your viewers that represents 400 paper trades for that same 1 ounce. How does that make any sense?
There you go. Right. That's
now. Unfortunately, we don't have the 400 paper trades that I would put to the right over your bear. I'd surround.
Well, here, for lack of a better prop, I'll say.
Oh, there you go.
It's kind of like this: 400 sheets of paper, right? For each one. Okay,
now, Ron, we did not collude on this visual.
No,
this was all done live, folks.
I've got everything down here in the basement, John, I tell you. So John, if we go back to this and you wanted to talk about this other smoking gun.
This is a smoking gun.
Yeah. Let me go down here. I mean, God, just incredible, these numbers. Okay. You want to talk about this?
Yeah.
Okay.
Let's just read. Okay. So WikiLeaks uncovered that the plan of basically the manipulars was to come up with a futures market that would have a huge distortion between the proportion of physical trading that would take place versus the volume of paper. So here are the 4 points. Future trader basically is going to be gigantic compared to less than 1% physical. So it intentionally creates volatility. It diminishes the demand for physical because you're demoralizing the investors. Yeah. And then you're also discouraging or negating long-term hoarding by U.S. citizens. Now, this document was leaked by WikiLeaks, and it's proof that manipulation was hatched in a boardroom by the CFTC and its complicit arm like J.P. Morgan, Bank of America, CPM Group, and the Silver Institute.
So this was a document. Number one, was leaked by WikiLeaks. Number two, it was written around 1974. Is that correct?
Yeah, the link. Wait, go to the link above. Let's look at the link.
Okay.
I think I have the link.
Yeah, 1974.
Yeah.
And it was a communication between the kind of the dominant forces in London and the dominant forces in the United States in regards to the establishment of this electronic futures market for gold and silver, and then pointed out what this communications. And it's interesting that that was occurring right around the time that I think that was when President Ford was signing legislation, if I have that correct, that allowed U.S. citizens to own physical gold again. But the communication was basically like, yeah, we're going to set up these futures markets, and we're going to basically manipulate the price, if you read between the lines, and we're going to inject massive amounts of volatility into the price, and we are going to demoralize anyone in the West who wants to hold physical metal. Is that a
yeah, that's perfect. Yeah, you're better at breaking these things down. I'm just a good writer. But the last paragraph actually shows how they did it with SLV, where they can make money walking it up and down, up and down, up and down. So basically, whenever you want to drop the price, you just sell more virtual silver.
Wow.
If you want to raise the price, you just don't manipulate. So imagine if you can read tomorrow's newspaper today, and you've got that, all you need is about a 12-hour window of time. And I'd give you an example. Let's say you're on, and I'm not suggesting this happens with Apple stock necessarily, but let's just say, Ron, you and I are president and vice president of Apple. We know when the next iPhone's coming out.
Right.
You can do the same thing with any product that you're releasing. And if you control the information and you're the one that writes the press release, you've got tomorrow's newspapers today. It's similar with Congress. They get involved in briefings on national security and energy because it could be a national intelligence on under the guise of national security, but then they know what to trade the next day or that day for war profiteering stocks, national or energy stocks, tech stocks. It's like that George Carlin quote, "There's a big club and you ain't in it."
Yeah.
But that's why we have to huddle together in the basement. And your viewers do a better job than I do. I read the comments from your and by the way, everyone, this Ron made it clear 2 years ago he was going to do one video a day. And this whole thing, this whole channel is basically because of his followers, his viewers, his subscribers. They've made this happen. And I'm just watching you grow in such a short amount of time to be the top 2 or 3 influencers in the space, and you remaining humble and allowing me to come on. Some of the other people, like the big, Kitcos of the world, they'll never let me on. They don't want us to grow, but it's the underground. God, I mean, we won't even talk about the other stuff in the news, but let's go ahead. Well, we can talk about BRICS.
Yeah. Let me hold on here. Let me pull this one up, and where did it go? Bear with me, John.
Just go to the mask. Go to the top.
Okay.
Article. Make it real easy. Go to Silver Academy. Click on Silver Academy.
All right. There we go.
And then go and say no thanks. Everybody, that's where you'll type your stuff in.
That's
and then
where
scroll down.
Okay.
It was probably keep going.
Is that a rundown of big world events?
Yeah, that it
I
could
think
be
that's
it.
it. I think
That
that's
is.
it. Yep, I think that's it.
Yep,
Okay.
that's it.
Yeah, here we go. And I thought this was because the brick story is huge in this idea, and I want to get your take on this after I let you kind of walk us through this article. But I'm hearing more and more chatter about like a Goldback trade settlement currency possibility.
Okay, wait, I'm finding the article too. So give me a
Okay.
sec. So
Yep.
give me the
Oh,
context again.
hold on here. Is it
I'm
up?
there.
It's
Okay.
okay. It should be up on the screen. There we go. Yep.
Okay, you're hearing chatter. Well, the Goldback. All right, you're referring to what's called the M bridge and the unit, and I'm not ready to dive into that yet. I did
Okay.
write a piece on that, but it's basically the way they can navigate around what we call SWIFT.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so it's basically the philosophy is let's just look at the list of these people that have signed on. This is all a new. This is really what you could call a reset. U.S. dollar since Bretton Woods is the global reserve currency, right?
Yes.
Then
Yes.
after this meeting that just took place, what, a month ago, Ron, the BRICS summit?
Yep.
Okay. So look at what, here was the tipping point. Saudi Arabia left the protection of the petrodollar 2 Sundays ago, I think, maybe three
Yes.
Sundays ago. So now the whole world has changed. What does this mean? Okay. Nations do not trust each other's currencies. They used to trust the US dollar because they were
Yeah.
required to hold the US dollar to buy oil. Okay. So everything's changed, right? Let's look
Yep.
at that list. It's got some huge names on it. I think every country that joins is a big name, just like every basement dweller is an important person. You had mentioned that it only takes each person to buy 5 ounces. Now start adding up the total purchasing power, and don't even think of their GDP. Think of all the resources these countries have to just trade with one another.
Yeah, yeah.
Their
Well, the
oil.
one, oh, look at number 12, you know, a country that most of us have not heard of, Kazakhstan. They've got like and produce like a major amount of the world's uranium, which is becoming very, you know, important right now.
Yeah, Finland just powered a nuclear plant yesterday, and electrical prices are just plummeting because of it. Look at Venezuela, number 7.
Yeah.
The way the West spins them is some evil empire with high inflation. Okay, the second part's true. They're not an evil empire. They may have had Cesar Chavez had questionable practices as an authoritarian. However, they have the largest oil reserves in the world. Google it, everybody. Who
Yeah.
has? Okay, so
And you know what I saw? I think that's in this article. I saw that, and it's always like news to me, and I've heard that, and I know it's a fact, but no one knows that Venezuela has the world's largest oil reserves, right? So it's always interesting how the United States over, let's say, the last 5 years has acted towards Venezuela, right? Almost like they're, like you said, an evil empire and an enemy with a dictator
yeah,
running the
so
show, right?
crazy. Just remember when Bush said the axis of evil, which was a code word that we're going to bomb you and give you a heavy dose of American democracy and steal your gold. Go down the list. Look who else just joined. Pretty big name there. Thailand. Hello.
Yeah.
Malaysia and Singapore used to be one and the same. Turkey has always been the most strategic country when you think of the gateway to the east, or the other way, gateway to the west. Think of the sack of Constantinople. There's
Right.
that song, Istanbul used to be Constantinople by They Might Be Giants. I mean, it's just legendary when you think of antiquity and the trade route between the east and west. Thailand, here's another joke. If you can't get laid in a city named Bangkok, there's something wrong with you. But Thailand, known for its, I mean, very strategic, along with Vietnam. Now we're talking about Indochina. And now with Japan selling off, here's the unwritten script. What happened yesterday in the last 2 days with Japan sold $63 billion of U.S. treasuries. And what did U.S. do? We put them on our watch list for a manipulated currency. You don't think that the nation that talk about calling the kettle black, who manipulates currency more than us, Ron, with whether
Right.
it's fractional reserve banking schemes where they mouse clip money, the way we've inflated the money supply in the last 2.5 years. What is that metric? Like 40% of the money ever created in the
Yeah,
last 2
right.
years?
Yeah, it was created in the last few years. And you brought up I think this is a critical point, John, for all of us to remember. It's one of those kind of I like to say, like, you can play checkers, you can play chess, or you can play 3D chess and try to kind of really put all this together. But when you look at that list of countries that you compiled that have applied to the BRICS, right, or somehow, and we know that those countries hold, the kind of lion's share of the world's resources. What is that telling us, right? But I think this critical key idea that you brought up, and I think that our viewer needs to consider, is that big massive list of countries, right? They don't trust the US dollar, right? That's been made exceedingly clear to us over the last couple years, and we understand why, right? They're not real keen on the US dollar. But they trust each other's currencies probably even less. So if you think about that from a silver and gold perspective, it's like, well, they don't want to be in the US dollar. They don't want to be intertwined necessarily directly with each other's. Where are they going to go? To me, it's pretty clear why the world central banks and why gold in particular, and it'll bring silver along with it, are becoming so popular, I guess, or regaining. I mean, never lost its popular, but does that make sense?
Well, no, they actually, that you just brought it up. If nations don't trust each other's currency, and central banks understand this, that's why they accumulate gold. But if you think of every transition or big swing, as Ray Dalio, the billionaire, says, these are big swings. Let's think what happened when the French Revolution and the US Revolution happened really close in time in terms of spatial proximity or temporal proximity. At that point, when feudalism is surrendered or yields to capitalism, gold had to step up and do the accounting for all those types of transition. So this is the next big swing, as I would call it, late stage capitalism. It's not free market capitalism. It's more of a rigged capitalism that privatizes profits. It socializes losses. So this rigged form of capitalism, which is really, I would call it military, industrial, war profiteering, sort of phony crony capitalism.
Mm-hmm.
Is it, as it is yielding to the petro yuan, that you can say it's the petro yuan now if Saudis join BRICS. So you brought up a great point. If all those, let's think of where these countries are that have the resources. They're mostly in the third world. And the reason they stayed the quote third world is because the Northern Hemisphere usually exploited their natural resources and labor markets and added value in Europe and the United States. Well, you don't see any of those people in Africa or Latin America signing up with NATO. Name one. There isn't one. That's a pretty big, this is where most of the people live. And now they're getting some purchasing power. If US has been outsourcing everything to, let's say, India in the last 40 years, well, India's middle class has now risen, and now they have more discretionary money than US middle class, which is being eliminated. So they're buying the silver. So everyone's buying the silver. Your stackers, the emerging markets, and BRICS. This is what will mean, what it means when I say the West has lost control of the silver market, except for with those TAMPs. And they're not going to stop doing that. So just buy every dip. I mean, we're going to run out of what we call dry powder, but you can, that's what I would do. Is the Federal Reserve note is losing purchasing power, whereas gold and silver.
Yeah, I look at I like to do this almost every day. I look at this, right? Paper, unicorn, fart dust, whatever you want to call it, make believe, funny money, whatever. And it's mind boggling that I can convert this paper into this, right? And that most people in my country, if offered the choice on the street, would take this, right? Because they just don't know yet. But like you said, and I think that's an interesting point, throughout the world, more and more people are waking up, right? Like we talk about the United States and the huge potential for people in the United States to wake up to the value of silver and gold. But I think on a worldwide basis, they're a step ahead of us at this point. And if the world population in that list of countries that we looked at, that ever growing list of countries that, like you said, they're not clamoring to join NATO, right? They're clamoring to join the BRICS.
Yeah, the only reason they were attached to Bretton Woods is because Kissinger, right when Nixon closed gold convertibility, Nixon simultaneously set up the prison yard protection program with Saudis. So they just knew they had to do it to buy oil. Now so the world changed. And the US, in the meantime, we had nothing to really export, except it wasn't, our number one product wasn't corn or soybeans or US steel or cars in Detroit. It was the US dollar. That was our main export. And what a deal for all of us as Americans. We had that, what's called the exorbitant privilege. But those days, it's going to be a tough wake-up call for, hey, hold up those two things again, the dollar and the ounce of silver, because here's another mental construct that I think is helpful. Forget, and then the dollar right next to it. And thank you, that's good enough. And then to think of it another way, don't think of an ounce of silver worth 29 of those dollars. Think of it in reverse, that really 29th of that silver ounce is just that $1. So divided by 29.
Yeah.
So it takes, that's kind of, and that's with us being unsatisfied with the price of silver. It's going to go to 50 when gold goes to 3,000. Silver there'll be a 60-to-1 ratio. And there's some people like Eric Sprott that are calling a 15-to-1 ratio. I'm being real conservative with a 60-to-1 call. Very conservative. Yeah. Because you had said, I mean, gold, did you know that there's less silver above ground than gold, Ron?
No, I didn't know that. There's less actual physical silver. That's interesting. That leads me into I wanted to say something earlier as well, that the silver market, I heard it said this way, obviously we are consuming more silver now every year than we are producing, right? And where is that extra silver coming from? It's coming from the above ground, from the reserves. And it's real simple, but I just hadn't heard it said that way. But these reserves that are above ground are limited, number one, and as you're saying, there's more above ground gold than silver at this point, and they're shrinking, right? Like, what happens when the reserves, they don't have to completely run out when people start to wake up, or these traders or whoever, like, hey, we're really getting to a critical juncture here where, next year, we're going to need X amount of ounces of silver. The mining sector is only producing so much. We don't have the reserves left. They went away right. I mean,
well, no, you said it perfectly. I mean, the ore grade for your silver, and Fortuna is one of the better ones. They're probably, in fact, I think they're producing, they're one of the leaders in terms of silver. But let's just say all globe, they're at 800 million. But you said it right. If industrial use with military, aerospace, and solar alone is enough to wipe that out, just those three use categories. That doesn't count electronics. Yeah. So I think we did there was an article I did about a month ago where 3 weeks ago, where India in Q1 of this year bought more silver than they did in entire 2023.
Yeah, it was like 120 million ounces. Sorry to enter.
Well, really, no, you have it. 1 month of India's purchases can wipe out everything that's in Shanghai right now. And you got to remember, COMEX, has it been audited? Has Fort Knox been audited? Have you seen that meme where John Travolta's looking to the left and looking to the right, looking to the left, looking to the right, and he puts his hands up like this? Have you seen that one yet, Ron?
Yes. Yeah.
And what are the shelves? They're empty, right?
Right. And that's what we could have with silver, and sometime in the near future, right? The shelves are empty. And John, I mean, and I'll ask this question to our viewer as well. all of this is happening. I know the last couple of days have been hard on the silver price if we choose to measure it in US dollars, blah, whatever. But this price that we're at now, let's say close to $29 per ounce, is number one, is a lot higher than we were just in February and March. We were at $22 per ounce.
What is that, like an 18% increase?
7, that's almost 30%, I think. 30, yeah, roughly, right, because a third of 22 is about $7. So
Okay.
yeah, about a 30.
There should be no whining.
No whining. Yeah, everybody stop whining right now. Big John Little and Little Ronnie are telling you to stop your whining. But John, think about this. To me, this is super exciting, actually. The fact that we've done that well, and we're near, if we get through $32, $35 silver, I think we're off to the races, because people will say, oh, we had $50 silver in 2011. We had $50 silver in, what was it, 1980? But those were like blips. If you look at our chart, man, it was like up, down. I mean, and we never really spent much time above $30 or $32 silver. I think once we get above that level, it's off to the races, because there just aren't any people. I don't know, anyone who admits that they own silver that they bought at 40. I mean, just not that many people, because it was such a short period of time, bought silver when it was $42 spot price, and are waiting for it to get there so they can just sell that silver and get out. That once we get really above that level, and then next time we get above $32, $33, that'll be our third attempt. And it's rare to have a triple atop. I mean, very rare. We could be off to the races, but I'll get to my point, which is, I think, super exciting for any of us in the silver sector. What we've done, even up till now, we've done that without really that much investor demand. Certainly in the West, right? And then I think as we look at that list of the BRICS countries that are expanding and the potential, there's a lot of people in those countries that are moving into the consumer class. And when they start thinking, well, what am I going to do with this excess money that I have? Am I going to keep it in my local currency? Am I going to buy dollars? Or maybe they'll start to buy gold and silver. I mean, I just think the potential, all these projections, and then I promise I'll shut up, all these projections for future silver demand don't account for the potential for a massive increase on the investor side. They kind of leave that number static. You know what I mean? And that could be another like massive factor that could drive the price of gold, but I think in particular silver, in a rather dramatic fashion.
Yeah, I think I would like to add to that in that, let's set this up. If we're talking about BRICS and they are clinging to silver as sort of a lifeline, we know that these are nations, they have felt the sting of turbulent constitutional instability. They've seen so many pictures of presidents on so many fiat notes come and go. They can't really afford gold. So silver, we've said gold is the money of kings and banks, and silver is the money of the ordinary folk, or I call the villagers. So just like we see Gen Z buying beans of gold in China, we should be stacking silver rounds at 28, 29, 30, 31. Doesn't matter. Just keep buying the dip. I think you said it right when you said that a triple top is a good sign of it's not sustainable. We have to be patient. We've been saying that for a few years. But I wouldn't say that you want to look out the window one day when your silver's worth $1,000, because you're going to see the Mad Max looking environment. But this is supply and demand. And we do know that there's been no new discoveries of silver, none.
Yeah.
We know that it takes 10 years for a mine to come online. We know that 1 in 2,000 mines fail. We know that many of them are in jurisdictions that are risky. So what we know is that supply is limited and that demand is off the charts, because why? Silver is still the best conductor of electricity, always has been. It has the best reflectivity. It is the most ductile, malleable, has the best thermal properties. And the fact that it doubles as this monetary metal too is just sort of incredible. Maybe that's why you and I are obsessed and need to get our heads examined. But we also just have to understand that why do we get involved in this passionately? Because this is our life congealed. We're exchanging our time, our talent, our energy, our labor for a unit of exchange. And if it's being inflated away, we as villagers need to huddle together to figure out how to put an end to fiat tyranny.
Yeah. Yep. And you bring up an awesome point, John, about silver, right? Yeah, it has this industrial component, right? And if you compare and I would say that's kind of like, that's its half brother relationship to copper, let's say.
Correct.
And I find it interesting because copper is an electrification metal, right? We need copper well, guess what? We need silver for the electrification of the world. And we also need silver for the technology revolution, all the AI demand, all the semiconductor. So silver's industrial component is, I think, somewhat similar to copper. Oh, have you noticed lately? I haven't looked at copper real recently, but copper recently was like hitting all-time highs. There was even talk 4 weeks ago of a copper squeeze that occurred. It didn't get a lot of press, but there was apparently a squeeze. So silver's half brother copper is at near all-time high territories. If you look at the monetary component of silver, right, I think you can compare it to gold. And isn't it interesting when we look at gold, that gold has recently hit all-time highs? But then you look at silver, right, the kind of half-breed between the two of those, silver is far from its nominal all-time high and way, way, way far away from its inflation-adjusted all-time high. And the fundamentals for silver, I say, are as good or stronger than both copper and gold.
Yeah. So we all know that the three of those are all monetary metals. They also happen to have great intrinsic value. But the reason why silver is underperforming, so-called, is because, let's get back to the beginning of this interview. It goes back to the Mr. Slammy, Tampity Tamp, Tamperoo. I mean, so now that's the smoking gun. If you know that someone is doing that manipulation of 400 paper trades or 1 day of paper trading equals a year of mining. Let's just say that's the smoking gun. End of story. Yeah, there you go. What is it now?
Well, here we'll go. Here's the paper to silver ratio. If you can see my yellow finger out, 400.7. So we're almost to 401, right?
Just
Paper
like we proved that a day. So again, a day of paper equals a year of mining. There's 365 days in the year. So that's pretty close.
Yeah.
That's all the evidence I need to be convinced. And why would the banker do that? Well, do they want competition for the Federal Reserve note? Absolutely not. So it just goes down to that. They don't want the Federal Reserve. All roads lead to the Federal Reserve, right?
Yeah.
Oh, by the way, any news on they were under attack by
the hack?
Yeah.
I haven't seen anything. I looked last night briefly I know that there was that potential story developing that someone had hacked the Fed and was going to potentially release a bunch of data, but I haven't heard anything on that. What I did hear were some people that supposedly knew what they were talking about, saying that they thought that it was possibly or likely a bluff. But who knows, right? I would think the Fed, I mean, wouldn't mind, if they had to pay a ransom, printing up some fiat and keeping that one quiet. But no, I haven't heard anything, anything further.
I was just saying all roads lead to I believe there's a senator, there's a couple of them, that Massey, that introduced legislation to end the Fed. And there's whispering that one of the party's candidates in the presidential race, is Trump. He said, that he would consider that, or at least appoint Judy Shelton, who's pitching a gold-backed bond, T-bond. I mean, that's a great idea. And then Luke Groman's coming up with a scenario of $20,000 an ounce gold, based on basically it's just a simple reset of taking our gold inventories, or take the $35 trillion debt divided by ounces of gold above ground, and you got it right at 20,000.
Yeah,
that solves the debt problem. I thought that was a brilliant piece.
I've got another great question for you, John. In my opinion, great question. Before I do that, I want to throw in Jim Rickards is recently $27,000 gold just by doing simple math, and that leads us into my next question for you. Let's see if I can verbally convey this. I actually wrote it down earlier. So if you think about all the gold that the United States supposedly has in Fort Knox, right? 8,000 metric tons. That makes us the world's largest holder of gold, right? At this point, still, I think officially, if we believe those numbers, we are the world's largest holder of gold, right?
Yeah, even though Alistair McLeod says China has 29,000 tons. But anyway, that's no
right.
one knows. Oh, but go ahead.
So if the world continues, if the trend in the world continues towards, let's on a very broad basis, we'll say de-dollarization and moving more toward gold, at some point, because let's say if we believe that the US does hold most of the world's gold, if that trend continues where we move away from the dollar more to gold, could you foresee a time when it behooves our government, because they start to get scared, like, well, they're moving away from our dollar, right? And everybody's moving toward gold, and all the other, this horrible gang of dictators that we're going to call BRICS, that are, horrible people. They're all that the U.S. government might behoove the U.S. government at some point, out of fear, to say, we need to revalue all this gold so that does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. There's whisperings that, let's say you're a politician and you're getting sick of hearing in the Fed, it would make sense that you could actually throw the Fed under the bus and say, no, we've liked gold the whole time, and it solves the debt crisis, right? If you revalue gold, now you can pay the $35 trillion back with $20,000 an ounce gold. What do so that means you'd want to get in right now with gold at $2,300. That's a 10x move or 19x move. I see that happening because BRICS is going to do what BRICS is going to do. And we may go to a bipolar, not like a mental health illness, but a multipolar world where we're just the Western hemisphere and they're just the Eastern hemisphere. And, everybody lines up and both have sort of a bimetallic standard. Everything's on the table at this point. Yeah. Oil for gold, gold for oil. Maybe in the end, it could be who holds the farmland and the water, or who has the quality of life, or we don't know. It could be who has the video processing cards for artificial intelligence. That's what NVIDIA's stock run's starting to look like. But at the end of the day, you got to go back to Maslow's pyramid and know that they're all derivatives of gold and silver, and you could argue water and air and farmland. But I like where you're going with that thesis.
Yeah, but almost like in the end, Mother Nature always wins. In the end, market forces always prevail. That we get to a situation where the United States is, for lack of a better way to say it, either forced, or it becomes abundantly clear that it's the best idea for the United States government to revalue the gold, because if we want to continue to play on the world stage, and if we want to maintain our grip on as much of the power that we have in the world, then we're going to have to use that gold, because that's what's becoming the force of value. Does that make sense? I mean, it's kind of a hard concept to convey verbally, but that it almost forces us, that we're almost forced to recognize the value of the gold.
Yeah, when you see that you're just losing so much of your sphere of influence and credibility with your trade partners, then it forces you to get back to fundamentals. I think that's what you're saying.
Back to fundamentals. John, thank you, man. You are awesome. I want to remind our viewer to go to the Silver Academy Substack. There's a free option that you can subscribe for. You will get one or two Great. I mean, really great stuff, John. Interesting. And you're not afraid to take the tough subjects on. So guys, go check that out. John, anything I forgot or anything more you want to say before we sign off?
No, I just wanted to say I'm grateful to you and your fans and your followers, because this is how we learn, and we have to do this every single day. We wake up and we figure out how we can stick it to the man. But let's stay in touch, okay?
Yep. Sounds good, John. Thank you. Okay. We really appreciate it. And
Yep.
we'll talk to you soon, buddy.
Stay awesome.
Okay. See you, man. Bye-bye. Bye. All right, guys. There's John Little. What a guy. What great insights he has. And again, I'll say it, go to the Silver Academy Substack. I have no financial interest in recommending that. It's just great content, great material. You'll be glad that you did. I want to say thank you to our friends who gave some super chats during the show. Don Howe, thank you for the super chat. And our good friend Cliff Moberg, thank you for the super chat. Thank you to our sponsors. Okay, we have, of course, Pinbex, where you can get yourself some gold or silver, maybe before we see a price revaluation in the future. First Mining Gold and Fortuna Mining. You can check them out at their websites. I have links to them in the description of this video. Thank you for being here. Okay, you are important. Be nice to yourself today, and I will look forward to seeing you again soon.